Hello, and welcome to the Racers HQ podcast. I'm your host, Matt Murphy, and joining me on the line tonight, as always, are our dedicated co-hosts, Pat Mullery and Nathan Adler. Pat, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I am giddy excited to be back on the pod with you fellas.
Oh man, so excited. Nate, how are you? It's been too long.
It has been. I'm glad we're back on a Tuesday night, so this my dedication to this podcast doesn't interfere with my dedication to CBS's Survivor.
Yeah, thanks. You know what? We need to know that Survivor is a CBS product.
It is.
CBS.
Paramount?
You can't find
NBC?
anything else.
I don't know. You know what? It's on Paramount.
I like that.
No. Doesn't matter.
Good. I like it. Cool.
For a long time, I thought that CBS had a. I mean, this may be the case. I don't really believe in conspiracy theories, but that one of the reasons they had the ratings locked up on terrible TV for so long was that they paid off nursing homes to set the channel on CBS and then took the batteries out of the remote control. So the folks couldn't do anything about it. Prisons too. And so people were sitting there stuck watching, what I consider dreck.
And they probably had a monopoly until the battery lobby got a hold of them and what are you doing to our product here?
Yeah. Some prisoner filed a 1983 claim for the deprivation of his civil rights because he was forced to watch, Young Sheldon or something like that.
Well, and then Duracell took that money and went and sponsored Williams, and hey, we're back to race cars.
There we are. I like it. Nice way to bring it.
It is
back,
a race
Nate.
car podcast after all.
Allegedly.
All right. I've got, so tonight we're going to talk about Road America. Pat Mullery and our other buddy Todd, they went to Road America this last weekend. It looks like a blast. Not a lot of other updates to provide, but this should be a pretty good hot take from Mullery. But before we get into it, I just have some musical commentary to make. We're big into the hype music that goes onto our websites, playlists, and whatnot. And I just made a big error in the last podcast when we were talking about the Gran Turismo movie, and I forgot to mention his awesome hype music, or it's more of a calm down music. But one of the big pieces of the whole movie is that he likes to listen to Enya and Kenny G before he gets in the race car, and this was a big talking point in the movie, right? So it was Enya's. Orinoco Flow.
No. Oh, damn.
Oh, sorry.
That's what I was going to guess. Orinoco, but yeah.
Orinoco Flow, yes. But yeah, he would listen to that before getting in the car just to kind of center himself. So we'll get it added to the Spotify playlist. But yeah, that was a big part of the movie I left out, and I didn't want to forget that. And then finally, I'm actually missing a really interesting show right now. I could be at the Mac Sabbath concert. Any of you have not heard of Mac Sabbath, just go Google it immediately. It's the best thing ever. Pat raises his hand. Nathan raises his hand.
That's all of us. You're the only one that knows.
No, I just now know. My brother had some extra tickets, but they're in town.
Is it Fleetwood Mac and Black Sabbath?
No, it's better than that, guys. It is
better.
Cosplay McDonald's universe covering Black Sabbath.
Okay.
With McDonald's themed interpretations of Black Sabbath song. So I'll just give you a quick lyric. I am frying pan, right? Or yeah, you get it. So
Pat's copyright.
Yeah, before you don't go too far into that. I don't want to get sued. But man, the YouTube videos are the best because they dress up like the Hamburglar and and all the various characters. So I recommend you Grimace. Oh yeah, Grimace is definitely but they're all very much like mangled, right? They're like it's like Gwar meets.
I was going to bring up Gwar. That's what this reminds me of.
It's very much Gwar, Black Sabbath, McDonald's universe.
The Onion does Gwar.
Yeah, it's the best. I mean, and at some point, there's even a video of him actually meeting Ozzy Osbourne on the TV show. And so they get to collaborate together for a second. It's just, it is just wholesome, good audio. But anyway, so I'm missing that show tonight.
There's a video on YouTube of it's a Japanese band and it's kind of like that where they're dressed up in costume, and then the drummer just rails. I mean, absolutely destroys, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's dressed up like as a. I mean, all I can think of is Grimace. He might be in a poop emoji costume for all I know, but just absolutely slaying the drums. It's hilarious. It's
Sure.
about 5 minutes long.
That's the best thing. You want both these things. Yeah.
I've got to think the Orinoco Flow transition into some of the other songs on our hype playlist is going to be fairly jarring.
Yeah, coming from Mastodon or something to that's a rough transition.
We'll put it at the
And
end,
especially going
like
the other direction.
community-centered. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Orinoco Flow should probably be the first one, like the gentle ease into.
Oh, okay.
Well, but the last thing you want is to have that and to get into that space, and then the first 4 seconds of some crazy song starts playing right as you're taking off from pit lane. It just throws everything off.
Yeah, like Orinoco Flow to Jesus Built My Hot Rod.
Right.
That's a little
not a good transition.
Bit of a neck snapper. Well, enough about me. I have not touched my race car because of, I don't know, chili cook-offs and other random events that I've been. Oh, and that cat that was hospitalized in the last podcast is still not all that hot, and very much we're into like a mid-90s Civic worth of vet bills on that one. But
I'm sorry.
But anyway, she's okay. I mean, well, she ate today. That's exciting.
Oh, that's an improvement.
But let's get into Pat Mulry and his beautiful life. I feel like you've got some pro racing hot takes. You've got some golfing hot takes. You've got some Lemons hot takes. Why don't you just run with it and we'll find out what happens, Mulry.
Hot takes to go. Well, we'll start with our garage update, which is similar to yours, but that's because I was up at Road America last weekend. Yeah. But this coming weekend, our good friend Eric Strawn is coming down to help work on the on Miku 2 this weekend. I think we'll have a very. It looks like the weather's going to be quite collaborative for us, so I think we'll get a lot done.
Nice.
My goal is to get mostly everything, get as much mechanical done as possible, and so that then all that we really have left is for the final electrical troubleshooting. We got into that the weekend before when Ben was over here. Final electrical troubleshooting and startup, and try and get to the point where we could get it to the track to validate everything. So
very exciting.
That's the big.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah. So we're not going to make Houston, but I think we could if things go. We don't need things to break too right for us, just to go normal right.
Yeah.
To be ready to go to Road Atlanta, which would be awesome.
Okay.
And then definitely ready before Barber next year.
Yeah, no
not
question.
a non-issue at all.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So that'd be awesome. So that's the garage update. But like I said, as you said earlier, I was at Road America this weekend, and I was able to work in, as Nate and I were talking about on Nate's last podcast. I've gotten back into golf a little bit the last couple of years, and was able to go up a day early and play at a course about an hour northwest of Milwaukee called Erin Hills, which was the host course for I think it was the 2017 U.S. Open. It is a big time course, and it's kind of like it felt sort of similar to all the feelings felt sort of similar. Like the first time you drive like Barber or Road Atlanta or Road America, like from driving, like ECR or Hallett or MSR Houston, which are all fine tracks, but they're, the minor leagues compared with the big time, right? And then you go to the big time track and you're like you feel it, like you have the butterflies and like this is the real deal. And it's the same thing with Erin Hills, and an awesome time. I was playing. It was just a twosome. I got paired up with another rando, Ryan, very nice guy, and our caddy, because you have to have a caddy at Erin Hills. I mean, it's not mandatory, but you have to, because it's very hilly and there's stuff behind the hills that sometimes you just want to hit over the hill, and you would never know that, like looking at it. As a first timer.
So this caddy, so it's kind of like a coach, like he's just going to be like, don't do that.
It's a lot better than that, actually. I mean, they carry your bag. They give you club selections. Like some of the hill, on some of them, like okay, you're going to tee off with driver, but before you hit it, I'm going to walk ahead of you 100 yards to the top of this hill, and I'm going to raise my arms, and I want you to try and hit me, because this is where you need to hit the ball in order to have the best score on this hole, rather than where you think you should be hitting it, which is that green part over there that you can see.
But I know you can't hit me.
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna get out of the way. It's not like you're gonna scream it right at him, and because well, I suppose you could, but hopefully not at that distance. Hopefully he can still react. But like that particular hole, I'm thinking about, like, there's about 100 yards of straight fairway to the right of this hill, and then it bends at about 90 degrees around that hill, and it's sloping away. So if you hit it over the hill, where he's hit it over the hill, you're gonna land it on the fairway, and it's just gonna a 200-yard drive, and then you're gonna roll it another 150 yards just because of the terrain and the way it's sloped. And it was incredible. It was like a 70-degree day. There was no humidity. There was a light breeze, but nothing gusty. It was perfect weather for, well, frankly, anything outdoors, basically, but especially for golf. And it was kind of magical. It was similar to racing in that, one of the things we've talked about is how when you watch on TV, you watch a race on TV, the TV flattens out the race course. You do not fully appreciate the elevation changes, both the large ones, but even, camber and small changes. You just can't, the medium just can't really capture it. It's the same thing with golf courses. And I didn't realize that because I'd never played on, or realize that as much. I'd never played on a golf course like this. You
tour level.
Yeah. Where, and super tour level, right? Because it hosted an open. So it's got these, incredible turtleback kind of greens where, on one of them I had, I don't know, probably blasted it out of a bunker to 40 yards. A bunker that was 45 yards to the pin, blasted out of it. So I'm 40 yards to the pin. And then, but it's on the, what do you call that? Curtilage. On the front of the, on the front of the green, it's not green, but it's the fringe. It's not rough at all. It's you could putt up to this, right? But it's 20 feet above you. And it was you putt it once and it rolls all the way back to you. And you putt it again and it rolls all the way back to you. And the third time you putt it just enough to get over that ridge that stays up there. But you don't want to putt it too hard, because then you're going to do the exact opposite and you're going to be 60 yards off the back of the green and in a different bunker. And you see stuff like that at the majors on TV, and you're like, man, how did Greg Norman just take a putt from 6 feet and put it 30 feet off the green and into the water? And it's well, because the green is that sloped and fast, and you just don't pick that up until you are at something like that. And then it's I just can't even imagine being a pro showing up at a tournament and being oh yeah, no big deal, I can handle these. This is what I do. It was really, really awesome for our golfing members of the podcast, listeners of the podcast. Highly recommend it. It was
very cool,
incredible experience. Really,
Erin
really
Hills, awesome. You said hour north, roughly.
Yeah, yep, about a little more than an hour northwest of Milwaukee. So there's another big course. Yeah,
last time we talked, you mentioned that there was a course there at Road Atlanta. Is that true, or did that end up not being the case?
No, there's a course at Le Mans.
Oh, at Le Mans. I thought we were saying there was one at Road America.
No, there's one near Road America. One of the things I didn't appreciate about Road America until I got up there is how close Road America is to the village of Elkhart Lake. It was 5 minutes from my hotel in Elkhart Lake to the track. It's really, really close to town.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. So flew in on Wednesday, played golf on Thursday, then drove up to Elkhart Lake, Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening. And then we had, it was the normal Lemons schedule pretty much, from Friday morning on. We did, so I was driving in the number 15 Fireball Racing 1967 Ford Fairlane sedan.
Okay.
With Chad Adams. It's his car. And automatic
Where are they based out
transmission,
of?
4-speed auto, Chicago.
Chicago. Okay.
Yep. But he usually is at Barber. That's probably about all the races that has overlapped. That car actually was built in Houston and raced in Houston 1 or 2 races maybe. So we might have seen it there before. It's in a blue and gold, mostly blue. The body's blue livery.
Yeah, it's the fake Holman Moody
Yeah.
scheme,
Yeah.
paint scheme. Yeah.
Yeah. Mario Andretti's car.
That's right. Okay. Yeah.
Can we dig into that a little bit? Like, I'm curious about like team operations, like drivers, like car, like how is that kind of mix?
Yeah. Is this a full arrive and drive team, or is this just they needed an extra butt in a seat kind of regular setup?
I think Chad normally has a couple other guys that drive with him pretty typically, but I think he pretty well relies on A&Ds also. And so this race, he didn't have anyone other than the two of us, me and Evan, and then Chad were the 3 that drove the car for the weekend. So it's a Class C car. It is, like I said, he had put in a new, and by new I mean rebuilt automatic transmission, and with a floor mount. I don't know the brand, but one of the clicky automatic transmissions.
Yeah, drag racing style ratchet shifter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, ratchet shifter.
Like B&M, some kind of deal.
Yeah, that's right. And so you just put it in drive and go. And he had a transmission cooler on the front of it that was effective enough. We didn't blow up the transmission. The big challenge, 2 big challenges on that car. One, no power steering. So it's a 4,000-pound car with no power steering and a heavy front bias and a steering wheel the size of Connecticut, let's just say, right? Okay. So big steering wheel.
Millimeters.
Yeah. And then he had put bigger front brakes on it. He had Wilwood 4 pistons on the front, but they were still on 15-inch rims, so they weren't real big. And the factory drums on the back. So braking on that car was more suggestive than demanding.
Well, it's good that you weren't at a track that demands, really confident braking at the end of enormously long straightaways.
Yeah, long straightaways into gravity wells.
Right.
Yeah,
that's
so
really fortuitous.
Yeah, but I've I don't A&D a lot, but I have probably 10 races at this point, and I mean you kind of know going into it, it's going to be a little bit of a mixed bag, and you just are gonna. It's really the classic, you're going to drive the car that you have and not the car that you wish that you had. And so, and that's where practice is super useful. And I still only went out and probably did 3 laps, maybe 4, but I think it was probably closer to 3. And it was like, okay, I'm going to go out and try and find my braking points, by which I mean, I'm going to brake at the very first sign with a distance on it and see how that works. And then when that's too much, I'll move it in, like halfway to the next one and see how that goes. And that worked out pretty well. Especially with, kind of spongy, not super great stoppy power. Like there's no way I could lock those front tires up. Just that wasn't going to happen.
What is that about old? I don't understand the technology gap there, because I don't think that like Miata brakes are all that like technologically advanced. Like, did they just get the math wrong back then? Like, why can't those old cars stop? Are they just that heavy?
Yeah. I mean, those
The
are drum
weight?
brakes on the rear. I mean, they just
Oh, the
don't,
drum brakes, yeah.
they just don't
Well,
have that much power. The fronts
Yeah.
are good, but they're just undersized for that. If you put, you
Okay.
could absolutely lock it up if you put big enough discs on all four wheels. There's no question.
that's the thing is they're probably working within the constraint of we want a 15-inch steel wheel so it looks like a NASCAR. What's the best we can do? And probably I'm guessing, I don't know what their specific setup is, but potentially, you're talking about them being very soft in general. It's probably a mismatch of the master cylinder size to the piston, and they're also having to balance that against having aftermarket discs in the front with factory drums in the rear, so nothing is going to match up nicely.
Gotcha.
And we go ahead.
No. You're on.
I was gonna say, and we wore through those front pads like way faster than he thought he was going to. We were going to, because he was like, man, like this set of pads, and I don't know what compound he was running. He's like, I can usually get like most of a season out of a pair of brake pads on this car, and we went through it. We killed off that front set. I don't think they were new, but by the end of the day on Saturday, 3 of the 4 front pads had about maybe 1/8 of an inch of material still on the plates. And one of them had, if you imagine that you go to a and get a bagel like at a high school cafeteria, and you order it with cream cheese, and they put the slightest schmear of cream cheese on there because they're a cheap high school cafeteria, so that they can sell it as a bagel with cream cheese. And so it has sort of this white color to the top of it, but there's not any real cream cheese there. That's what that 4th pad was like. Like if it was the bagel and you drop it on the floor, you could pick it right back up and there wouldn't be any cream cheese that had come off onto the floor.
It was a brake pad themed backing plate.
Yeah, that's it.
That's right. I'm just slightly interested in your very fancy
the trauma
high school that had bagels and cream cheese. We got white bread. If we were lucky, it was toasted in Oklahoma public schools.
Well, we didn't have a toaster. We weren't fancy with that.
Each his own. By the way, throwback to the size of steering wheel that would be, it'd be 177 million millimeters, by the way.
Oh, for Connecticut?
Well, I might have been exaggerating.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a 15-inch wheel, though, on those old cars. The same as whatever your actual wheel was.
It might have been. I mean, it was big. It was really big and completely necessary. Like going through carousel. Like I'm completely leaned over to the left as the car's turning to the right. For those who are familiar with pretty much every carousel, right?
With physics,
yeah, and then both of my hands are thumbs touching each other on the rim at the 3 o'clock position, just holding on for dear life, right? To the point that so I did the first stint on Saturday, so like 90 minutes at the start, and then 90 minutes, or I don't remember, 2 hours at the end. And by checkered flag on Saturday, I was like, well, we've got to hit the pharmacy and buy some Advil, because my elbow and shoulder have not felt like this in a really, really, really long time. Just groaning from holding that car in position, really mostly through carousel.
Was it power steering, or was it manual steering?
No power steering.
No power steering. Yeah, so it's the huge wheel with the low ratio steering box. So was it like 12.5 turns lock to lock?
Oh yeah, that thing was a nightmare to move at low speeds. I mean, at high speed it wasn't so bad, not just because it's just easier to turn when you're at high speed, but also you weren't turning as much. But like getting out of the paddock, it's like, oh my gosh, it's just hand over hand, super slowly. But it was actually a ton of fun to drive on track. Probably the most fun C-Class car I'd say I've ever driven on track, and that includes the Simca when it was a Class C car.
Okay. You didn't mention what engine was in this Fairlane, did you? Or did I miss it?
302.
302. Carburetor? EFI.
Yeah. Carbureted 302.
All right.
Like maybe, can you do a single barrel?
You
On a
can.
302?
You shouldn't.
Sure.
I think I
was
don't think it
either
ever came with a single
barrel or
It-
small 2-barrel.
yeah, it was
And
probably a small barrel.
It was, it didn't have, I don't know carburetors very well, and that's going to become really readily apparent, obviously. Maybe already is. But he said, I need to get a carburetor that has the vertical divider between the two sides, because in hard turns, like it would stumble because one of the bowls wouldn't have fuel in it anymore.
Yeah.
So
the physics with the bowls is the problem. Yeah.
Yeah. But stock fuel tank, although he's changing that over the winter, but like, I don't know, 20 or 22.
Yeah. Okay. There's a floater in the bowl, and I'm just saying, like, G-forces, you go through a carousel. Okay, for those listening to this audio only, because we don't have a YouTube channel yet, I was over here making hand signals, trying to explain the eccentricities of floaters and bowls. As a former Formula V owner,
floaters and bowls,
they just don't, that plus carousel, these two do not get along.
13-year-old humor comes right out.
I see, floaters and bowls. Thank you.
There you go. Now you're on track.
The upper decadent. Okay.
So explain, Matt Murphy, about floaters and bowls.
Well, thank you very much. So G-forces make it want to go sideways. I don't know, man. Look, carburetors.
No, I don't know what you mean. I mean, what's a floater?
Okay, so
a carburetor.
Okay, so in a car, this is gonna be somebody's gonna clown me on this. I bet Eric has an email opened already.
It's already warmed up.
Mother truckers. Yeah. So, like, going into a carburetor, you've got a fuel supply that's in like a little bowl.
Right.
And then you have this thing that literally like floats. I mean, it's basically toilet technology. It floats in the bowl.
Okay.
To see how much fuel you have in the bowl, to tell the main fuel pump whether or not to give more fuel to the bowl or not. And then so when the floater gets low enough, I guess it requests more fuel. And that also helps drive how much fuel is going into the carburetor, right?
Okay.
So it's kind of like a pre-check to determine kind of a fuel pressure regulator. I don't know. In a way,
fuel pressure is handled outside of the carburetor.
Yeah, but it's very ghetto. But it's kind of like a fuel supply, like a final fuel supply regulator, if you will. But if you think about going through a carousel, that's not going to work. Like, all the fuel's going to be on one side of the bowl, or it's going to splash out of the carburetor or something. Am I halfway right, Nathan?
Yeah, potentially. So the float bowl, think of the carburetor bowls as teeny tiny surge tanks directly attached to the carburetor. So you can't just run it straight off the hose. It just doesn't. There's not the supply isn't appropriate for the low pressures. Because, like, here's another thing: is old school carburetors like that run at like 5 psi instead of the 40, 50, 60 that we're used to on EFI stuff. So yeah, you have to have, as the float goes down, it opens a valve that lets more fuel from the fuel system into the bowl, and then the carburetor sucks the fuel out of the bowl into the Venturi and into the motor. But yeah, in a super long, high G corner like that, you could either drain the bowls, and then because of the G-force, the float isn't coming down and it's not refilling the bowl, or some version of that. So, Eric, please send your angry email to correct us. I think I'm righter than
Matt
that.
at racershq.com. No, that was a way more accurate way to explain it. But
well, fortunately, for whatever reason, we didn't have that problem in the carousel, but we would have it at like Canada corner or some of the sharper turns.
Okay.
Nice. But it was like I started saying, Chad had the car really, really well set up.
Okay.
Very, compared with Miku, very minimalist. But for what it is, that was perfectly fine. And it really was fun to drive, but it was really different driving. It's a momentum car. You have to drive it like a momentum car, because it's he doesn't have a hot cam in it, so it's kind of your everyday 302 in a 4,000 pound car with an automatic transmission, and not great brakes. So, you got to get used to being able to kind of chuck it in there and maintain your speed. And it ends up being really a lot of fun in that kind of car. I was able to, I'm not saying like I'm a hero, like just the way it worked out, like going, I can't remember, because the turn numbers get kind of funny there sometimes. Like it's kind of like Road Atlanta, where they give a turn number to something that you kind of feel like isn't even really a turn sometimes. But 5 is the downhill hard left-hand turn, and then you go uphill under the Corvette bridge, and then I guess that's 6, and you've got 6, that's a 90-degree left-hand turn, and you've got a 90-degree right-hand turn back downhill to a left-hand turn before the carousel, right? And like that, once I got through 5, I guess I would lift at 6, but then I'd be flat all the way from the apex of 6 all the way, till the braking zone downhill into left-hand before carousel. And that was like a lot of fun, like, curb, 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 and just like it was fun to drive a car that size, like that.
Yeah. This is the track with the kink, right? This is turn 11 is the kink.
They did drive it with the kink, which I was really surprised about.
What would they normally do? Put a chicane before that?
There's only one config.
No, you just drive it without the kink.
You can.
Yeah, you can. After the carousel.
Okay, let's move on. So, but you did do the kink?
You go from carousel straight up that back straight to Canada Corner, but they put that kink in right after carousel for IndyCar because they'd be going into Canada Corner
Wrong
too
kink.
fast.
The kink is between carousel and Canada.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
you could drive it without that.
Oh,
okay,
sure. So anyway, but it has the kink, and
but the kink is that a lift?
A lift and a prayer, or what? How
oh my gosh, no! That is a stand on the brakes to get that thing hauled down from carousel into
what,
the
really?
kink. Yeah, absolutely.
Really? I would never guess that.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Because it doesn't. I mean, that's like it's a left-right that kink, right?
So maybe they put a chicane in. What I'm thinking of is it's a if you've got the gonads, it's just flat and a turn, but maybe it's a lift with a turn to get the nose in.
Oh no!
But then you're down that like wooded stretch.
Yeah. So what I'm calling the kink, I think, is what you guys are saying is the chicane. Maybe we need to. Oh, okay. Maybe we need to pull up maps.
So Lemons added a chicane.
Yeah, Lemons added the chicane. It's the IndyCar chicane.
Okay. We're back to English now. Okay.
And that's what I was calling the kink. But what you're saying is the kink is what I was saying is straight, basically. Yeah. And with that chicane, it was like stand on the brakes before you get to the bridge.
Okay.
And turn in and try and it all depended on the traffic situation, because one of the things that, no surprise, is common in that car is getting dive bombed at every corner by faster cars.
Yeah, sure.
And so if somebody's in there on the left, I'm not going to come down on them, right? But it's really hard to turn that car at speed in a sharp 90-degree turn and then get it right back, another 90 degrees out of that chicane and onto the long stretch to Canada Corner. But if there wasn't somebody right there, it still was brake really hard, but it was a lot easier because you could round that corner off a little bit more onto the kind of right next to the curb on the left at the chicane, and then the curb on the right when you turn back, and then just don't get going too fast that your understeer plows you off the left side before the straight down to Canada Corner. But then Canada Corner was a total blast. Other than, like my braking point for it was 400 feet, like standing on the brakes in that car. But if nobody's dive bombing you on the inside of that turn, like it was just a blast just to carve through there and hear the tires on that thing just, squealing as you're hauling it through there. And like I like to.
proper 70s cop movie.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, like not. I wouldn't say the whole thing was drifting, but it was making a lot of noise. And if there had been hubcaps on that thing, we would have gone through at least 5 of them in one shot. But
That'd be a
I
fun.
like the. Yeah, I hope that like it was giving the corner workers the grins at the
Yeah, just
turns
bring,
when
like-
it's making the noise.
Just bring like 6 cases of hubcaps to a lemons race, and like unreliably apply them constantly.
Yeah, get Jay to let us do that little bit of maintenance on pit stops. You can fuel, refill your cool suit cooler, clean your windshield, and if you're running 15-inch steelies on a cop car, you can replace the hubcaps.
I like it.
Theme above all.
That's it. Same thing with turn 1. Like turn 1, you could really sail through because there's a lot of room there. That was one that like the entire race I just kept like breaking later and later into it because I'm like I really can continue carrying more speed through here.
How are the facilities? Was it beautiful? Like, is it almost as good as Barber?
Yeah. So it's an enormous facility, right? Like the track is 4 miles, 4.08 miles or something like that. But the facilities were very, very well kept. Multiple bathrooms, multiple concession stands. The bathrooms were clean. There was a large, well-paved paddock. It wasn't like, I mean, it's a big time track and it gets used by big time organizations. So they're not, they're not letting it fall to pieces. And it was really obvious. There were lots of internal roads and trails. So we had a golf cart so you could get around to see almost all of the track from the inside. The only one that was closed was the trail down to the inside of Canada Corner for some reason. They're doing trail maintenance or something. But yeah, like not quite as nice as Barber. But what is as nice as Barber? I haven't seen one yet.
Like,
yeah, but I mean it's almost neck and neck. Like its facilities are as good or better. The only thing, and they have garages that you can rent, which Barber doesn't have. They don't have a lot of them, but they have some. But Barber has that, press center where we can sit up on the second floor and be inside and watch, a good part of the track when the weather's bad.
Do you find yourself buying more Sargento or Johnsonville products after doing a couple stints?
I did have a Johnsonville brat for lunch on Saturday. So yes,
right.
And Sargento is right there too. That's funny you say that. Like I drove past one of the big Sargento plants on the way back to the airport on Sunday. So
nice.
Yeah.
Can we give some shout outs to some other homies that were there? I know Todd was racing some bitchin' IROC Z and
yeah, we had a bunch of homies there. So yeah, Todd was racing IROC Z. Man, those guys were snakebit a little bit. They had they're I think primarily a chump car team, and I'm not sure that they really fully read the Lemons rule book before they went to a Lemons race. So they had a problem of their own making in that their exhaust exited out like mid-door on the passenger side, which is allowable in chump, but not in Lemons. Lemons says you've got to be, behind the driver. So they had to rebuild their exhaust. And
that's a lot of work.
And so what I first have been told was, it's not going to be a big deal because we just took a longer one off. We could put that one back on. But then it turns out the guy had changed transmissions. I don't know from what to what, but the old exhaust was no longer able to be mounted because the new transmission took up some of that space. So
yeah.
On Friday night, I'll get back to the Camaro story in a second. On Friday night, they did something unusual, at least for most Lemons races, but they did a parade from the track into the town, which was pretty cool. And so they had all of the race cars that wanted to, I guess, and could.
Were capable.
I mean, they were really encouraging everyone to do it because they did tech at the track, but they did the BS judging in town.
Really?
After the parade, yeah. And
Nice.
so, the old kind of famous hotel in town is called Siebkens, and that's where the bar is. It's called the Stop Inn. It's like a really famous road racing bar, right?
Okay.
Like the front, it's kind of two rooms. The front one, like the walls and ceiling and everything, are covered in either race car stickers or race team flags and stuff like that. Like it's very ornate, maybe isn't the right term.
Kind of like that bar at Sebring.
Yeah. Except the bar at Sebring was, kind of fancy.
More of a dive bar.
Yeah, more like the bar we went to for dinner with Hunter's mom. Only covered in race stickers. Like, that kind of old
steaks.
Yeah, exactly. The old, I mean, it was built in the in 1915 or something like that. Yeah. So that's there. The Siebkens Hotel is there. And so then, and it's on kind of not a peninsula, but a street peninsula. There's like a big U around the hotel. And so they parked all the cars along there, like Le Mans style, except on both sides of the road. And then the judges went through from the start to the end doing their BS judging, on the street, which is, I think it was a little bit arduous for them because there were 142 cars at this race. That's a lot. And then you're trying to do them all in, just a couple of hours. And then
Did
in the middle of it,
enjoy it?
Oh yeah. Everyone enjoyed it until it started raining.
Yeah.
About 2 hours in, the sky opened up, and that kind of put a damper, no pun intended, kind of put a damper on things. But and then everyone drove back to the track. Yeah, thank you for we do need the drum kit on a button somewhere. But no, it was really neat. Yeah, there were lots of people that came out, lots of town people. I think a lot of people brought their families to this race. This is the first time in 8 years since Lemons has been at Road America. We don't right now know when we're going to be back. It probably isn't going to be next year because that weekend SCCA has it for the runoffs. So we're not getting it for next year. They'd love to go back, but it's such an in-demand track, that's a little catch can.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so Todd's team missed the parade because in the midst of so golf was 70 degrees. I don't know if I said that. 70 degrees, sunny, beautiful, perfect weather. Overnight Thursday night, fall blows in, and on Friday it was a high of 50, low of 36, wind to 16. So it was and mostly cloudy. So it was Midwestern fall is here. It was really chilly at times. And then with the rain, that unfortunately it was warm enough that none of it iced up, but it was pretty cold. So unfortunately Todd's team was at the track on the pavement in the rain rebuilding the exhaust. I don't wish that on anyone.
Yeah, gross.
Having done most of that at some point. And but they got it done and then went out and it broke on their first lap. And so then they spent, I think, most of Saturday building a new one all over again. So they were pretty short on track on Saturday, but I think Todd got in at the end of the day on Saturday and got to drive for a while and then got another stint on Sunday maybe. So they ultimately got out on track and got everything. But we had a lot of folks that we know that were there. Troy and Frank brought the green E30 up from Houston. Brian and Marty had their Mustang engined E36 there. Anton, go ahead.
I was going to say, we unfortunately have to pour one out for Anton's Volvo.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
so Anton was it's 3 days from Berkeley to Road America in the bread van with the straight 4 inline 4 diesel Isuzu engine.
No way.
Apparently is sitting right next to him because it's a delivery van. He said it is quite loud in that vehicle as you're driving
Humming
along.
on the highway.
Yeah. And thirsty on top of everything else, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, 3 days from Berkeley, and but the Volvo was running great, and so Anton was running that with Mary and Chris and Neil, and then who else? Well, and Bob and Frank and their troop were up from Houston with one of the old winos. The Dart, I don't know if the Dart is no more or if the Dart is just no more for now. But they had one of the winos. Was it a Solara? Do you remember
Yeah,
that
I think
car?
so. Yeah.
Um,
I know that Frank was there. I don't remember which car it was, but yeah.
yeah. So they were there. I'm trying to think who
Yeah.
else. So, you know, for
Troy's team did pretty good, right? They came in like what, 6 or so?
yeah, they definitely finished top 10, and they would have
Nice.
been higher than that, but they had a couple of I think black flaggy issues on Sunday.
Yeah. Well, congrats on their continued excellence.
Yeah,
No doubt.
absolutely.
But
And,
also what, like RIP that Volvo?
Yeah. So that was a really harrowing moment. Chris was in the car,
Yeah.
and Chris Champion, and was going around carousel, and I was literally like standing there talking to Anton, just kind of shooting the bull, and then they black flag the whole race, and we're like, "Huh, wonder what happened," right? And
Not good.
and then Mary kind of comes running up, and she says, "Anton, it's your car that caused all of this." And she knows that it's her husband, driving the car. And so we're like, oh, yeah, crap, what happened, right? Fortunately, I mean, spoiler alert, but Chris is okay. Like, Chris walked away from the wreck, but the Volvo did not. He was in the carousel as he was, I think, kind of near the exit of carousel. He got he was on the outside of another car and dropped two wheels off the track. And when he was coming back on, the lip of the pavement caught, I think, the back wheel and just 90-degreed him straight across the track. Like, he's lucky he didn't hit the other car because it winged him right in front of it. But then it was basically head on into a K barrier about 100 feet away. And so I talked to him shortly after we all went down to check out what remained of the car. Then I drove Chris back up in the golf cart back up to the paddock, which is a pretty long drive. And so we were talking about it, and I said, how, like, did you see it coming, or did it happen so fast? Like, there wasn't anything you could do about it. He's like, well, with getting, spun by the track, there wasn't anything you could do about it. He's like, but I saw the wall coming, and in the grass, like, there's nothing you could do. So it was just, get your hands up off the steering wheel onto he said, I made sure I'd flip down my visor and cross my arms and grab my harnesses. Right.
Yeah.
And you're just along for the ride there. Right. And, really stuffed that car in hard. So hard that it bounced up on top of the K barrier and rolled. Well, it rolled at least 270 degrees because it ended up on the passenger door on top of the K barrier. Other witnesses have said that it rolled more than that. I don't know, and I haven't seen any video evidence. I don't really care to. But it popped out the front windshield. He was able to climb out.
Nice. Oh, that's cool. Nice.
Yeah.
No, anything where you hit a barrier and you go vertical, that's a lot of energy being dispersed, and that's wild. Yeah.
Yeah. But
I'm glad he's safe. Jeez.
Yeah.
Cage worked it was supposed to. Car didn't catch fire. Hans device worked like it's supposed to. Harness worked like it's supposed to. Helmet worked. Chris walked away.
Everything.
Spend every dollar you have on safety equipment.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, so then this was kind of the ironic part. After they take Chris to, this is something Road America has that I don't think we see at other tracks. They actually have a staffed medical center during the race. And so they took Chris to the medical center. He checked out, and then they took the car. they load the car up on the flatbed. The race was probably black flagged for 30 minutes, I'd guess, while they were cleaning up after that. And then they dropped it off at the, unironically, the shipping and receiving building on the edge of the track, right, or on the edge of the property. So then we hopped in the golf cart and took Chris and Mary and Anton and Neil. I think Pollock hopped on too, actually. Went down to see it, and just nothing left of the front end. The engine was still there. One of the fenders was still there, but just creamed.
Yeah.
The whole body wrinkled up, but or almost the whole body wrinkled up, but the cage appeared to suffer no damage. Like it wasn't kinked, it wasn't bent. In fact, I'm not sure the body was in contact. By the time we got there, at least, the body was not in contact, and it didn't look like it had been, which is pretty remarkable for having rolled over on top of the car. But yeah, it worked out. I mean, everything worked out. I've said for so long that we are absolutely so lucky to be in this hobby at this time, because it is unparalleled safety and people complain at tech, about
you got to fix your spreader plates. Your spreader plates are 2 inches too small.
Yeah, or that weld's not completed, or your belts are out of date, or why should I have to wear, like when we instituted the Hans rule? That was before the Hans had come out of patent, and they were still $500, $600, $700 a piece. And there wasn't a competitor. And it's like, look, this is really expensive. It's like, it's priceless is what it is.
Yeah.
Racing's expensive. If you can't afford safety gear, you can't afford racing. That's
it. You shouldn't. I mean, you shouldn't want to. I mean, we all get it, right? Like we race, we know what it's like to want to race, but when we made, I'm just so glad, that we made that Hans mandatory rule mandatory when we did, because I mean, this is the exact kind of accident that device is intended to prevent injury from. And Chris literally walked away from it. I thought, obviously I didn't hope he was going to be injured, but a head-on collision is difficult at any speed, let alone, racing speeds into a K-barrier. So I'm just so thankful that he's okay. It's sad that the 544 has gone off to Valhalla, but it did go off at a Viking funeral. So
nice.
Except without the fire part. The fuel he had, I think that was a Pyrotech fuel cell he had in it, not a leak out of that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, to that theme, as moving on to the next chapter, let's put a bow in Road America. So, like, how did the team do? Like, you feel like Lemons did well? Everybody survived?
Yeah, everybody survived. Our team did well. I have no idea where we finished, other than I think we were in 6th or 7th in class, but we went.
Stayed on track and had a good time?
Yeah, we stayed on track and had a good time. We were off for an hour at the start of the day on Sunday because we were taking the front tires off to check and change the brake pads. And one of the one of the lugs on the driver's side, like something got in there and welded the lug nut on. And so we were trying to work it off, and Chad was working it off with the impact gun, and it like wasn't coming. And then he was, trying to put it back on and come off, on and off. And he's sitting on the ground, and I'm standing there next to him and with the breaker bar. And he's like, "Here, could you see if you can just get this to move with the breaker bar?" And like, I started pushing on it, and I'm like, "We're going to bust this lug." Like, that feeling, like you haven't busted it, but that what you're doing is you're twisting metal. You're not turning the lug off of it. Right. And so I said, we're gonna bust this off. Like, do we have a spare? What do we need to do? Let's finish it. That was the first side. I said, let's go do the passenger side first to see if we have any problems over there, and then come back to this. Because at that point it was like 7:30 in the morning, and nothing was open to go get parts. So So we ended up busting that off, drove up to an O'Reilly's about 20 minutes north of Elkhart Lake, that had a very helpful young man who was excited to help early on Sunday morning. I was amazed. They had a very full complement of Dorman lug bolts in stock. And so we're just standing there like reading off the numbers. Because what surprised me is like there's like 16 different part numbers that might work for this application on a 67 Ford Fairlane, and they had like 8 of them in stock. And I'm like, how is this even possible that you can have all of these? That now I realize it works on a wide range of Fords from 1950 to probably today, right? But if I need an M8 bolt in the middle of a race, just an M8 bolt, and I go to a parts store, they're gonna be like, we don't have any of that metric stuff.
Yeah.
You got to go to a specialty parts store for that.
Yeah. So this is the Valtteri Bottas Monaco 2021 situation.
Yeah, totally. So we got back and pounded. I don't know what you're talking about. That's not perfectly obvious. What are you talking about?
Well, when in 2021, Valtteri Bottas went in for a pit stop, and the lug nut was like welded to the spindle. And you're verbose enough that I had time to Google that and sound like I was smart.
Yeah, it's like sort of kind of the slowest pit stop ever. It was like 43 hours before they got it back to the shop and got
2
the wheel
days
off.
to remove.
Yeah, I remember that now you mention it. It was that, except Ford 67.
But the Ford's been using the exact same wheel studs on every F-150 since 1948. Post after the war, and they just never saw fit to change it. So you're good.
Yeah, the only thing that we really were working through was where the knurling was on the stud, because on some of it's further from the shoulder and some of it's closer. They didn't have the exact first one that came up on the Dorman site. So, but we ended up working it out. Hammering it back in once we got to the track, and we got out like about an hour late, and then we didn't miss a thing after that. So. Yeah, I mean, we finished, somewhere in the top 10 of Class C. I have no idea where overall, but we all got to drive, I think, probably as much as we wanted to. I drove first then on Sunday. And I told him, I'm like, at that point, my shoulder and elbow were still pretty sore. And I said, look, I've got an hour in me of this. I'm not going to, I don't want to suffer, an enduring joint injury because of driving a Class C car in Lemons.
Yeah. Seems like a solid Class C car though. I like that idea as opposed to like an anemic 4-cylinder.
Yeah, totally. And our problem would be exactly.
At least
our problem would be like we wouldn't be able to stop ourselves. Like, well, we'll just put brakes on this, put cam on it, and then we'll put a
we're
big 4-barrel on it, and then
Look at you using carburetor words. I'm proud of you, Pat.
Look at you.
I read that in a cartoon one time. I think it was
it's
Archie.
a little float in the bowl.
So Road America was gorgeous. The racing was fun. Most cars made it home. Some cars scattered their engines. Some cars got stuffed into a wall. All the drivers came home.
Yeah, everybody came home with 10 fingers and 10 toes. So it was a great fun experience.
Well, congrats to all of the cool racers that we know and none of the other ones for going through that.
If we don't know you, bummer.
We don't know you. Screw off. Yeah.
The overall, I think the overall winner was, it was a first gen RX-7.
Hot.
I don't think it was running a rotary because it didn't sound like it had a rotary.
I bet not.
But it was a very cool livery that they had on it. It was a Red Bull derived.
Oh yeah, that thing looked hot.
Yeah, it was really cool looking, and it was rapid too.
Yeah.
There was a
like
Saturn
wide body.
Yeah. There was a Saturn there with a hard top. Like that Saturn Roadster had a hard top. Those guys were really fast, but then they broke, I think. there were some really neat, different, cars. There's certainly cars that we don't typically see in our circuit very much. In our
What
part
was
of the
pace?
lemon
Your
circuit.
pace was around 350. What was
My
like? What was
fast
the
lap
hot
was
pace?
my fast lap was 326,
Oh, that's
325,
nice. Okay.
326.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
on Sunday morning I got down there, when I actually had brakes again.
Okay.
And but I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah. I think
Other
Spec
than I
Miata
wouldn't.
pace is somewhere in the 240s,
Okay.
230s. Yeah. Just
IndyCar record is 142, so you were
so pretty
double
close.
that.
Knocking on the door there.
Yeah.
You're getting there, yeah.
Speaking of IndyCar, is there any pro racing happening this weekend?
There is pro racing happening this weekend at one of our favorite tracks at Road Atlanta. We got Petit Le Mans is there
Petit
this
Le Mans.
weekend.
That's like a small Le Mans,
The little
It
Le
is.
Mans.
It is a little Le Mans.
but probably twice as evil to their suspension.
Might be.
Equally as expensive. Or
Yeah.
anyway. So Petit
It'll
Le
be
Mans at Sebring.
Yep.
Is it-
I think all the championships are still up for grabs.
Yeah.
Is this
Could be
series
an-
finale for IMSA?
Yep.
Okay.
Nice.
Yep. This is it. Interesting. I read the other day that, in fact, yesterday, that FAF Motorsports is leaving the Porsche fold, and they've been running the 911, whatever that is.
Oh yeah, they partnered up with Ford, didn't
top
they?
version. What's up?
Partnered up with Ford.
McLaren.
Oh, McLaren. Okay.
Yeah, they're going to run a McLaren. They're going to run the McLaren GT3 starting next year.
Okay.
So
Nice.
apparently FAF is a car dealer in dealership chain in Canada, and they have a couple of McLaren stores,
Okay.
among other things. So they're not like completely foreign, but FAF has had some real success with that 911, that plaid 911, and then after Porsche came out with the Evo or the Rev 2 or whatever it is, 2 years ago, it has not been successful. And I've got to think that played some part in it with FAF jumping ship. So
okay,
but unfortunately, it looks like they're not taking the plaid color scheme to the McLaren.
Well, now Porsche has all that Penske money, so why deal with car dealers?
I don't think that's how that relationship works.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway.
I think it's maybe going the other way.
Okay. I don't know how math works or business.
Well, it's the most fun part of road racing is all, but that's okay.
All the math.
All the math. Well, fun.
Yeah, so Road America, Road Atlanta this weekend, and that's the finale. And then hopefully we will be present at Road Atlanta in mid-December with Lemons, if everything works out.
That's very exciting. Very cool, guys.
Yes.
All right. Well, guys, I think we're at podcast length. Mallory, thanks for the report out from Road America.
Yeah,
it
was
like a blast.
It sounds like it was a blast. I think Road Atlanta is still probably my favorite track.
Okay.
But one thing I did not realize about Road America until I actually had driven it in Anchor was how much of a bucket list track it is.
Yeah,
right. And I should have known that. When it got on the calendar this year, I'm like, we're going. I'm going to that race. So on the one hand, it's I knew it was a must do track, but also partly because Lemons gets there so rarely that you kind of got to jump at the opportunity when you can if you want to drive it. But I was driving from the Knot Kink, whatever it is, chicane, from the chicane up, up, that straightaway to Canada Corner
with all the trees. It's so beautiful. It's like
oh gosh, yeah, it was gorgeous. The trees at this time are just turning. So there's some that are still green and some that are red and some that are yellow, and it kind of felt like a video game at that point. They're just whipping by. They're so beautiful, and I just thought, man,
Enya.
That's right, Orinoco Flow. just blasting in my
Yeah.
imagination.
Mhm.
And I'm sailing away into
sail away. Yeah.
exactly. I like the kind of hula hand motion there too. That was
Oh, yeah.
nice.
Yeah. This is for the audio listeners. Yeah.
That's right, for the audio only listeners.
Yeah.
And but yeah, as I'm going down, I'm like, this place, like this is 100% as advertised. Like
Mhm.
this has not been oversold in any way. And
That's awesome.
yeah, so for anyone, you guys, but anyone listening to, like, if you get the chance to go drive that track, drive it, because
Yeah.
it really is everything that I imagined it to be. So it's probably tied. It may be ahead of Barber. It didn't beat Road Atlanta, but
Okay.
it's ahead of Barber. Road Atlanta is just
All right.
such a different track. It has different tempos at different parts of the track in a way that nowhere else really has.
Amazing track. All amazing tracks. Well, thank
All
you,
amazing
Maury.
tracks.
Thank you for the report out and the general review. I mean, we like to hear about all these tracks. Like, we don't always get to, visit all these things, and it's good to know that that's one we should go to, right? Like, if you had to choose between Joliet and Road America, you should probably prioritize Road America.
Yeah, if you weren't sure about that.
Yeah, if you weren't sure. Yeah. Well, good. This is good content. And we've got some good racing, some good road racing this weekend with Petit Le Mans. Anything else to help us wrap it up, gentlemen? Nate, you got any exciting news we forgot to talk about? Any pro racing? Any F1 updates?
Dirtbag
give a
shifter
quick
card update.
Dirtbag shifter card still hanging on the wall, hadn't been touched.
Eric Strawn came in 4th in the universe in
That's right.
in fantasy F1 this weekend.
Fantasy GP.
This guy has been a quant jock since we started working on this. By the way, quant jock is a person that spends too much time in spreadsheets, and he finally hacked it. He finally hacked it. I think he's still probably 5th in our league championship, but he really nailed it this weekend. So
He might be
ups.
4th.
Might be. I'm 3rd. I think it's Roland, you, me.
Yep.
And then a bunch of losers.
I'm just waiting for the season to end so I can go back and do my math on only picking Verstappen and Red Bull, which the system wouldn't allow me to, even though I had plenty of money.
Okay.
But anyhow.
Yeah.
No. Bathurst 1000 was this past weekend down in Australia.
Cool.
Shane Van Gisbergen won again. Dominant past 2 years for him. But looks like this is going to be his last year in supercars. He's coming to NASCAR full time for 2024. Nice. So be pretty cool to see what he does over here in the States. I'm excited to start watching that.
Yeah, let's keep some eyeballs on that.
Speaking of motorsports things that happen down in Oz, there's a YouTube channel called StanceWorks. You guys are probably familiar with it. Roland turned me on to it. But he's built a lot of stuff, but this is about his K-swapped 308 that he took down to World. It's not great.
World Time Attack.
World Time Attack, yeah. And if you have, it's a 4-parter. If you haven't watched it and you listen to this podcast, I recommend that you watch it because it is, it's fascinating. It is super lemony. Like I felt right at home watching everything that was going on in those videos.
Is that the one in Australia?
Yeah.
Is that the one? Okay. So
Sydney Motorsports Park.
Yeah. So very adjacent, like a person we know of.
Oh yeah.
Ferris Courtney won that thing. First American to ever win. Am I wrong? Nathan gives me a funny look.
Oh, just Khartoumi.
Ferris Khartoumi. Sorry. Got his name wrong. But yeah, he won the whole kit and caboodle, like Time Attack, vet. This is the one with like the turbos in the fenders, like replace fender with turbo equals rad.
More airflow.
I wonder if his hype song is Orinoco Flow.
It probably is, but he is beyond legendary now for that one because, I mean, those cars are wild. Yeah. But no, that's cool that the 308 went there because that has been a very high budget build that I've kind of kept my eyes on for a while. I've not watched this particular series, but man, when you say to yourself, "Oh, we're going to go the cheap route and just put a Turbo K series in this 308," no, that's like a $40,000 K motor or something. Like I don't know what's cheap about that, but it's Yeah, that's a
Well,
build.
I mean, I'm not spoiling anything because it's no surprise and it's right at the start, but like he shows up, at that track on financial fumes. I mean,
I bet. Yeah.
he has spent like every penny that he's got to get that car done and to Australia for this thing. Like this is a big, big reach for him.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I'm saying. Like it's so lemony in so many ways, and that's part of it. Like the first time I mean, certainly the first car that I built, and when we were going, like it was, very, you were not going to survive a financial crisis with that car if something really came up at the track.
No, it's interesting.
Yeah,
I'll check it out. Okay.
Yeah, you'll enjoy it. It's like I said, I think it's 4 parts. It's really very good, and they're all out now.
Okay.
So you're not going to get strung along every week.
Yeah, no cliffhangers.
That's right.
Nice. All right. Anything else, gentlemen, for the cause?
I think that's it for me for this week.
Like and subscribe, rate and review. Check us out on Facebook, on Instagram. Go to racershq.com. Email me, matt@racershq.com.
Buy him a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I don't think we have a structure for that. I think if you buy a shirt, I buy you a cup of coffee in some sort of weird way. But that's fine. Just buy a shirt.
Buy a t-shirt. Take Matt's money. Have a
Take
good
my
night.
money.
Right.
Take my money. Buy a t-shirt. Anyway, we love you. We will see you at the track, ladies and gentlemen.
Good night, America.